In world history, AP World and regular world history, we looked at the great Egyptian civilization. The word Egypt means gift of the Nile. And the Nile means the river of life. And we get one of the first big river valley civilizations that combined everything. One of the things we talked about is how the Egyptians, like everybody else, were deeply polytheistic. Their many gods and goddesses were once again the forces of nature. But in the Old Kingdom, Egypt has divided its history into three kingdoms: the Old, the Middle, and the New. The ending of one kingdom and the beginning of a second do not automatically line up. There was turbulence, civil war, flood, famine, and invasion in between. But the stereotypical period of the Old Kingdom, of Egypt, comes in the Old Kingdom. It is at this time when the Great Pyramids on the Giza Plain were built. Contrary to popular belief, the Hebrew slaves did not help build the pyramids. Hebrews were not in Egypt until the New Kingdom. But you look at these impressive structures, and you look at the villages for the artisans and the unskilled laborers here on the Giza Plain. The pyramids tell us three things about ancient Egypt. Number one, there was a strong central government. The Pharaoh, who had absolute, total, and complete power. They had large-scale organization. If these had to be built before the Pharaoh died, and the Great Pyramid took 30 years to build, your building materials have to be organized and transported. Your labor, skilled and unskilled, has to be housed, fed, feed, and clothed to make sure these structures are done. So large-scale planning and an intense study and mastery of complex mathematics, as the structures are a quarter-inch off of being perfectly square and standing 5,000 years later. So that's what we get from the Old Kingdom. Unfortunately, the power of the Pharaoh was great, but building of the Great Pyramids bankrupted the empire. There was a period of civil war, and when the Middle Kingdom arose, unfortunately, invaders from the Middle East, Hyksos, driving wheeled chariots with iron weapons, were able to cross the Arabian desert and the Sinai Peninsula, and they are able to attack and conquer the Egyptians. After 100 years of learning how to understand Hyksos technology and the Hyksos living a life of opulent luxury, the Egyptians thrust them out and once again reclaimed their empire and began the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom, we got 5 pharaohs I would like to talk about. One is, well, if you give me a second, I can call them, heck with that. Queen Hatshepsut, the first female ruler in history who reigned for 22 years. She is followed by her son, Thutmose III, who is a conqueror and conquers Egypt to its greatest extent to the Euphrates River. Amenhotep was a New Kingdom pharaoh who tried to make everybody worship only him, so he was kicked off the throne. King Tut, the boy king, whose intact tomb, the only one we have ever found, tells us a lot about Egypt. And then Ramses II, the stepbrother of Moses, who reigned for 67 years and rebuilt Egypt to one of its greatest heights, who signed the first peace treaty in world history. So we go from strong dominant authority to a weaker Middle Kingdom to the New Kingdom when the Egypt Empire was at its height of power and glory. Unfortunately, shortly after Ramses, it will collapse. That's what we've done this week in AP and World History. Next week, Mesopotamia, India, and China after Labor Day.